Who else is done with the Packers playing games in California, at least until the Super Bowl in LA next year? That loss really hurts, but it does only count as one. So it's back to getting ready for next week, and we'll talk about it with you next on the Packers Fan Podcast.
We've been referring to the green and gold as the heart attack pack for quite a while now, but this travesty of a game goes way beyond cardiac arrest. I'm Scott Clark, and if I were honest, I'm not feeling the greatest about our postseason chances this year. Hopefully my good friend here can change my mind.
I'm going to do my best. Wayne Henderson with you, recording episode 193 of your Packers Fan Podcast, November 25th, 2019, and oh my, did you see that hands to the face penalty? Nope.
No.
Me neither. On this edition of the show, we're going to review the Pack's performance in Frisco. Things still look good for Green Bay going forward, and we have the results from our weekly Twitter and Facebook poll question.
And the Pack will try their luck on the East Coast next Sunday against the New York Football Giants. We will share your feedback, and as always, the episode show notes can be found at PackersFanPodcast.com and in the details area of your podcast player.
Now, Scott, were there highlights from the game last night?
No. I know you've got some things written here, man, to talk about, but there really is not anything quality to talk about this game. Al Michaels himself called it punt return futility. The special teams are just not good at all at punt returns. We had negative yards on punt returns still, and we didn't even have the excuse of the wind and the rain like the Patriots and Cowboys did. So I don't have much good to say about this game. It was really difficult to watch.
I guess on the plus side, J.K. Scott is one heck of a punter.
He is, but it wasn't an outstanding show. I mean, they didn't give him a lot of room to really even get it inside anywhere. We couldn't get past the 50-yard line for the majority of the game. It's just
the fact that he was able to get the punts off every time because he was doing a lot of punting.
Boy, there was a lot of close calls in there too, because they got in there, like you could just see that pocket just slowly close around him, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna get blocked, and thankfully it didn't.
And the way J.K. Scott extends his legs so high, it would not be good if somebody did get in there.
I agree.
He'd be defenseless. The other thing on the plus side is that this does only count as one loss.
Is that a Gimli reference?
No, it's just watching some of the reactions from fans and even myself at the end of the game, it felt like 3 losses.
It did. It immediately felt like our season was over and I know it's not. Our schedule's looking good for the next couple weeks, but it felt like just such a downward decline from where we were. If we came off of a 2-week break looking like this, where our offense can't click and our defense just can't stop anything, I feel like we're in for a long haul for these last few games of the season, but I'm optimistic. Maybe not quite as optimistic as you, but still feeling okay.
None of the games are gimmies. That's for sure, especially after we've seen in some of these recent games. But we do get to play the Giants, Redskins, and Bears. Mm-hmm. Those are all winnable.
They are, but we also have to play Minnesota after that, and I feel like Minnesota is a different team than they were when we beat them earlier on the season.
Well,
and unfortunately, so are we.
Well, Scott.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that made it feel so much worse is because I hate the 49ers so much, almost as much as I hate the Patriots. And their fans, their bandwagon fans are just coming out of the woodwork, and it just is so frustrating. So,
well, I posted a picture in our Facebook group. I was watching the game with some Niner fans that are in my area. I have a lot of friends that are Niners fans. Believe it or not, I know like 5 people here in Rockford that all root for San Francisco, if you'd believe it. And 3 of them were at my house. They were the exception to the quote-unquote rule that you're talking about, because they were very nice. They weren't rubbing it in or anything like that. Just, I mean, that's my group of friends in general. We just we don't trash talk as much or rub things in nearly as much as we used to back in the day. It's all about win with grace and lose with dignity, right?
That's your slogan. And those are good words to live by.
Mm-hmm.
And while that Vikings game is not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, the fact that we do get the Giants, Redskins, and Bears, whereas the Niners have to play the Ravens in Baltimore next Sunday.
Who beat the Patriots.
That'll be a loss for the Niners. Then they go straight down to New Orleans to play the Saints. Very good chance that one's going to be a loss. And of course,
that's a very good chance that's going to be a fantastic game, by the way, because that's the number 1 and number 2 seed as of right now.
Yeah. And at the end of the season, they go to Seattle to play the Seahawks, which is hard to beat in December. That very well could be a loss for them as well. So although they currently are in the lead in the NFC, it's all about what happens these, final 5 or 6 weeks. So that's about it as far as the bright side. I mean, on the downside, Aaron Rodgers was getting hammered, wasn't he?
He was. He got sacked 5 times, and just constantly on the ground. And we were expecting that. Didn't I call that last week when we had Liz on, that he's going to get knocked down more times than we're going to like? And I know you were texting me furiously about there not being any roughing the passer calls on him. I think there was one that maybe could have been, but
that's the one that I texted you on. I didn't text you after every single sack. I would have carpal tunnel today. That's true.
But I don't know. I think that one was a little questionable because the hit on him was because the defender thought the ball was loose and was going after the ball and knocked his helmet a little bit. So it didn't feel intentional. It felt like scrambled to get the ball more than it was to hurt the quarterback. So I think that's why there was no call there. And I actually agree with that call.
And I know you're tired of hearing about the terrible officiating, but we have to briefly address it. Hands to the face. Really? I didn't see any hands anywhere near the face.
Yeah, the Packers are so good that they can get a penalty for hands to the face without actually touching the guy's face. I mean, they weren't even anywhere near him. They showed the replay, and his hands were several inches away from his face, not on his neck. Remember that game a couple weeks ago,
right?
Where those in the red zone where the hands were pushing him up or whatever, and we're like, what? He's okay, whatever. This one, there was literally no contact whatsoever. I'm baffled. So many calls against us, and it just really hurt us.
And Jimmy Graham's catch that was ruled incomplete. Not sure why we didn't throw the red challenge flag on that one, but
I don't remember that one being as big of a source of contention. I thought, isn't that the one where he bobbled it and then the nose of the football hit the ground?
Well, no,
even if he had control.
It looked like he had control, made at least 2 steps, maybe even a third, and then as he went down. It definitely, even the team on the announcers and the retired official, they're like, that should be challenged. That should be a catch. And that would have kept the drive alive instead of another punt.
How many times did we punt this game? It felt like 7 or 8.
It was at least 50. I'm pretty sure.
And then on top of that, we got a pretty bummer of an injury with Brian Bulaga, who left pretty early in the game. Sources said that Bulaga, who left the game in the first quarter after someone rolled onto his right knee and was immediately ruled out, avoided a major injury to the same knee that was repaired in 2017 when he tore his ACL. One source also said that Bulaga did not re-injure his ACL, which would have ended his season. He could miss next Sunday's game against the Giants, and even one more after that maybe, but the Packers should have him back for the stretch run. So that's a low light, but also some silver lining in that it's not season ending at least.
Yeah, because it did not look good at the time. It's kind of amazing when you think about it, Scott, that our knees hold up as well as they do considering what we put them through, not to mention what football players put them through.
Exactly. It's just insane how much abuse we put on our knees, even just walking from day to day.
It's amazing.
Sometimes hundreds of pounds on these things. It's crazy.
So at the end of the day, would you say the Packers were rusty at the end of the bye week instead of being ready?
Well, yeah, that goes without saying. I mean, we this is the kind of performance I expected out of the first game of the season, not week 12. I mean, it was maddening. There's just nothing could go right this entire game, and I said it already. It was absolutely painful to watch, and I did not have any beer at the ready, so nothing was really helping me at this point. Just chili and pepperoni rolls. That's about it.
Well, that does help a little bit.
I
don't think the team listened to our advice after the loss to the Chargers, where we should have gotten out to Northern California more than a day before the game.
Yeah, it seems to be a factor for sure. I mean, we've always been a cold weather team, right? We always play well on the frozen tundra or where it's cold, and apparently we just can't play in California. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to just use that as an excuse, but they don't. A lot of East Coast teams don't do well when they come out to SoCal or Northern California if they don't get here enough time to just kind of get acclimated to the whole thing. And oh well, when we play in the Super Bowl in Los Angeles in a year or so, we're going to make sure that they're ready.
They'll be there a couple weeks in advance if they go.
Yeah, so we don't have to worry about that at the time. But with that, we do have some listener feedback that wants to help us get through this and move forward. So first, let's see what's happening in LA with Andre.
Go, Pack, go! Go, Pack, go! Hey, guys. Andre at LA. Man, that was a butt-whooping we took yesterday. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but we got a big dose of troop serum yesterday. We've talked about it all season, about the receivers not really being that elite outside of Devontae Adams. Matt LaFleur has done a really good job all season of kind of scheming them open, but I think yesterday the team got exposed. I don't know what happened with Jimmy Graham, but it's pretty clear that's been probably the most disappointing signing in recent seasons. He cannot get open when he's wide open. That's the only time he really seems to catch the ball. He cannot block. Offensive line, we've kind of noticed it the past few weeks, has been leaky, but yesterday they looked like they couldn't block anyone. And give credit to the 49ers. They are an elite defense, but a lot of our fears kind of got exposed yesterday. We still can't stop the run, and it really opens up the play action. In particular, tight ends really get open because we're trying to commit more people to the run. It was very sobering yesterday. It was very disappointing to watch. I mean, I know some people are going to say, oh, we can't handle the West Coast. I think, no, it's just really physical teams we struggle with. And if we're being honest, the Niners is just a team we want to avoid altogether in the playoffs. I still think we match up well against Seattle, against the Saints. We've proven we could beat the Cowboys. It was a tough loss. Minnesota's tied with us, so we got the tiebreaker. Our schedule does kind of – there's not as – this was – yesterday was the first time I felt the need to really look at the schedule. Like, oh, can we still – win the division? Yeah, Chicago won yesterday, but it's the Bears. They still stink. No disrespect to anyone. The Vikings is the team to really only worry about because we have trouble against the run. I still think we can beat them in the one-on-one matchup. Our schedule is a little bit more favorable than theirs, and we play them at the end of the year, so that's going to be a really big game. Other than that, we just got to take the humble pie, still believe in our team, still support our team, just figure out how to highlight our deficiencies and go from there. I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer. I like the fact that everyone after the game was still in high spirits and just, took the loss like, okay, we see what we need to work on, and go from there. Still love my team. Green and gold from Dead and Cold. Go Pack, go. Andre in LA. Love you guys.
How about Andre just staying super positive with that Go Pack Go at the beginning of that voicemail despite the horrible loss we took yesterday? Shout out to you, man. I love it. I agree with you 100% that we want to avoid the Niners in the playoffs until we absolutely have to. And, fingers crossed we get that first round bye, assuming that they will as well. Because, I don't want to face them, especially early on. Let's get a couple games into the postseason if we can. He mentioned that the receiver is not being elite outside of Devontae, and I think that's where I don't even know. These games make it feel like Devontae isn't even elite. I've actually saw a lot more promise from some of the other WR2s while Devontae Adams was out. That showed a lot of promise. Lazard was looking really good.
Yeah, he was.
MGS showed that he can do some stuff. I think that the reason that they're not looking quite as elite is they're not getting as many opportunities because Rodgers is just honing in on Adams so much, and when they're double teaming him, it's not going to happen. We got to spread that ball out. And I know we've been hammering that home the last couple weeks, but seriously, you've got other receivers. Throw it to them, please.
That would be fantastic. But I think it all starts with the offensive line. I don't know how Aaron Rodgers could get the ball to anybody for a lot of last night, especially after Bulaga went down. But fortunately, his injury isn't as serious, it sounds like, as we first thought. So,
and like Andre said, the Niners are no joke when it comes to their defense. They're like number 2 in the league, aren't they, behind the Patriots, or maybe number 1? They're ridiculous. They've got the most sacks. It was bound to happen. And if you sack Aaron Rodgers that many times, it's just going to cause all kinds of problems for us. And hopefully Bulaga gets back sooner than later.
And as far as being honest with ourselves, trying to avoid the Niners in the playoffs, that would be nice. And that's why it's critical that the Packers do not overlook any of these teams on the schedule, because if the Niners can start losing to the Ravens and the Saints and the Seahawks, which are all quite a possibility, and we have to play the Niners at Lambeau Field, it could be a totally different outcome. But of course, we would still have to show up.
We would, and thankfully we wouldn't have to travel and worry about being there in enough time to get the practice in the appropriate weather. We'll just be there already. So, and
we'd like to see the Niners come out to the frozen tundra in January.
Oh, that would be interesting. If that happens, I may have to go to that game with my Niner fans friends. That would be a great time.
I think that's a fine idea. And if it turns out to be the NFC title game, I might have to look into last minute airfare and talk to my wife about the budget, because she would want to go as well.
So let's make it happen. Then we can settle our Culver's bet.
Yes, because I know a lot's riding on those cheese curds.
Oh, I know.
Hey, this is Mark from New Lisbon. Wow, tough loss tonight. I don't know, some of the Packer fans are, of course, overreacting. But I am concerned about their offense, because LaFleur was supposed to be, maybe a step above McCarthy, and they still have the same problems. 3rd and 1 is still a problem. They seem to just rely on Aaron Rodgers to do it all. So some of the same problems they had last year with McCarthy. But it is just one game. They're 8-3. That's the upside. And it sounds crazy to say this, but I still think they're going to go 4-1. They'll beat the Giants. They'll beat the Redskins. They'll beat the Bears and Lions, and they might lose to the Vikings. So if they go 4-1, they're 12-4. And maybe division champs. Probably not a first round bye though. So yeah, it was a tough game to watch. San Francisco's really good, and I think it exposed. My God, our punt return team is terrible. We still need another stud receiver. I think we need another stud linebacker in the middle. So all teams have shortcomings, but. Again, the positive is I honestly think we're going to go 4-1 in the last 5 games. And, whether we can do anything in the playoffs remains to be seen. But let's not overreact, Packer fans. We kind of saw this game against the Chargers, and we bounced back after that. So if I'm the Giants, I would kind of be in fear that I think Aaron Rodgers could throw for 400 yards next week, because I think he's got a lot to prove, and I think they'll get back to running the ball better. They did run for 117 yards tonight, but some of it was at garbage time, and I think we have a decent backup quarterback. That's not what we were hoping to say after the game, is that Tim Boyle's passer rating was higher than Rodgers. But go Pack Go! You guys have a great podcast. Thanks for letting me talk, and we'll probably talk to you next week.
Mark, thank you so much for your voicemail. Well put, and we love the positivity. And to your question, do we need another stud receiver? Where are we going to find one if we do, is what I'd like to know, because sure, Antonio Brown's out there, but,
that just
I know
makes me cringe.
That was some of the chatter online today. It was very cringeworthy, but there's got to be somebody, that we could get. Or the other guys need to step up if the offensive line holds up and Aaron Rodgers gets more time and realizes there's more players than besides Devontae Adams. That would be nice. And what is it about being, when it's 3rd down and 1 to go, why do we have such a hard time with that?
I don't know, especially when we've got that great weapon called a quick slant that works well for us, and we just are not utilizing it this year enough. That was like our go-to on 3rd and 1 that worked in the past, and instead we're trying to run it up the gut every time. And against the against the Niners, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, that's definitely something that has to be fixed, Mark. But I appreciate the reminder that we don't need to overreact. Because
I will do my best, man. It's a little difficult. I hope we get more than 2 games under our belt before we have another insufferable loss like this one. But I'm trying to stay positive with the scheduling. That's the thing I've really been focusing on, is that our rivals' schedules are much more difficult than ours, and we can kind of hang our hat on that and hope for the best.
Yeah. At the same time, still take care of our own business.
Mm-hmm.
Beat those Giants, beat the Redskins, beat the Vikings, beat the Lions, beat the Bears. We'll see.
Wayne and Scott, I'm from Texas. What the heck just happened? I don't know what to say. I guess the Niners are that good. I don't know what happened to our offense. I don't know. I guess the Niners are for real. But I don't know. I just, our offense, they're good. They're really good. I don't know if do you guys think that maybe it has something to do with I don't know, Rodgers not spreading the ball as he was before Devontae came back. I don't know, because I didn't hear much of Kumaro, much of Lazard, much of Scantling, much of Graham, mostly Devontae Adams. But I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving the Niners defense enough credit. But I don't know. It was a crushing loss. But the schedule going forth looks favorable. Hopefully we can get to that big game of the NFC Championship. Hopefully. I know I'm speaking too soon. But no matter what, bleed green and gold till I'm dead and cold. Go Pack, go. Let me know your thoughts.
Thanks so much, Art. Really appreciate the voicemail there. Yeah, what the heck just happened is definitely what was going on in my head. I was half expecting a text from Wayne with that little gif of Vince Lombardi saying, "What the hell's going on out there?" And I
looked for it.
I'll bet you did, because I was shocked that it didn't come through. I was almost disappointed, Wayne. Almost disappointed. Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here that he's not spreading the ball enough. And thanks for bringing up Kumaro. I mentioned MGS and I mentioned Lazard, but Kumaro had that clutch play a week or two ago that was incredible. Where was he this game? We've got a lot of weapons. I know that they're not Devontae Adams. They're not Randall Cobb, who, had a great catch yesterday, by the way. Holy cow. Incredible play. You got to go back and watch it, Wayne. But we've got plenty of great weapons out there, and I think that's the key to any secondary we come across. Even the Niners, if we had just spread it out instead of focusing on that one, it would have been a much different ballgame.
I was going to bring up Kumaro as well, because there was a play near the end of the game, like at the beginning of the fourth quarter, when it was probably too late. But I did see Kumaro out there in motion, and I thought, oh, this could be it. No. Thank you for the voicemail, Art. Always good to hear from you, and hopefully we won't have to wonder what the heck just happened at the end of any more games this year.
Hi, guys. This is Hank Davis from the Mandalorian Fan Podcast. First, I want to say the officiating this season overall is egregious. Personally, I don't want to know who the officials are. They should be rarely seen and hardly heard. I'm not blaming the officials, but this season in particular, it feels like they want to be the stars of the show. The Packers had an awful outing, and there's lots to work on after this loss. But most teams lay at least one egg per season, and this was the Packers' big letdown game. But have hope, because this isn't college where you have to be darn near perfect to make the playoffs. There's plenty of wiggle room for growing pains and letdowns. So if the Packers can work on things and establish an identity, it might go a long way into propelling them into the postseason. There's plenty of time to get the ship righted, and hopefully the Packers will see the 49ers again and take care of business. A really tough loss, but hey, it's regular season, It wasn't the playoffs. So hopefully the Packers will be ready for another showdown against the 49ers, and maybe it'll be role reversal and the Packers will really put it on them. Love the podcast, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Hank, for sending that in. And yes, if we do get to play the Niners again, hopefully it'll be at Lambeau, and hopefully the butt whooping will be on the other side of the field. But yeah, that's a good point about the officials, Hank. They really do seem like they want to make sure that we know that they're out there doing their job. It's kind of like back in the day when you had antivirus on your computer and it would find all these false positives, and you're like, really? I know you're there. You don't need to prove to me you're doing something. It's just a little bit too much. And speaking of the Packers laying their egg, that reminded me of your Mandalorian podcast with the egg. Oh my gosh, I was not expecting that. But
by the way, how good is that show?
That show is really good. I can't believe the production value for a television series.
Here's what's great is on Friday, the show comes out on Friday. On every Black Friday, I get together with a small group of friends and we do a movie marathon. And this year we're doing Star Wars. I think I mentioned that on the show. And my friends are coming over about 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to get up earlier than that to watch the new the new episode of The Mandalorian in preparation for watching all the Star Wars all day because it's that good.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
Then, after you watch it, or after the Black Friday shopping and shenanigans, be sure to check out Hank's The Mandalorian Fan Podcast on the TPE Network. They do a solid job, and they know a lot more about what these Mandalorians are than I do. That's for sure.
I would be very interested in checking that out. I'm going to download it after we're done recording. Let's go ahead and move on to emails. We got one from Steven. He says, Wayne and Scott, I told you so. I told you both to pick carefully, and you both picked the Packers to win on Sunday Night Football. So neither of you deserve any points this week. Wow, goodness deep, man.
It's true, though.
It is true. I'm glad that the Packers don't have to go back to California after this game as they were 0-2. Is there any way we won't have to go to California at all in 2020? Well, I kind of hope we do go to California in 2020, specifically LA. Are you with me there, Wayne?
Well, I would definitely be at the game unless the tickets are $400 and something bucks again. Yeah. I kind of looked at the tentative opponents for next year. Mm-hmm. Although we aren't scheduled to come to California to play any games next year, depending on how the season ends, there is a chance we may have to go to Frisco again.
Oh, but interesting.
Let's make sure their final results at the end of the season change drastically, and that doesn't have to happen.
Mm-hmm. Stephen continues and says, and why, oh why, did the NFL move the game to a late afternoon game in the Central Time Zone to Sunday Night Football? It was a premier game. They thought it was going to be a lot closer head-to-head battle than it turned out to be, and I don't know. I feel like we don't do as well Sunday night as we do during the day, but what are you going to do? So when Wayne has to fly in to settle the Culver's bet of whoever has to treat the winner to a meal, are you both going over the border into Indiana and get yourselves candy at Albany's in either Hobart or Merrillville? I have no idea what that is, but I'm intrigued, and I'm going to have to look into that. I'm going to have to do some Google search when I'm done here.
How far is that to Indiana? I had no idea Indiana was that close.
I mean, it's the next state over. I don't know how far away those cities are, but Chicago is right near the border, at the bottom of the lake. So if it's on the west side of Indiana, it could be just 3 or 4 hours.
Road trip.
Sounds like a good time. The Green Bay Packers will be the only team in the division next Sunday, as the Bears and Lions will be doing battle in Detroit on Thanksgiving, and the Minnesota Vikings will be battling the Seahawks in Seattle on Monday Night Football. That's an interesting turn of events there. So yeah, we'll know half of our fate when we play our game on Sunday. And he finishes up the email by saying, I wish you and the Packers fans in the United States a happy Thanksgiving. Steven, checking out from Palos Park, Illinois.
Also got an email from Caleb and Company. Hey, Wayne and Scott, this is Caleb, Kathy, and Roy Fisher from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Just wanted to say that so far it looks like we're playing without heart. We had so many opportunities, but we're starting to crumble. So many things that we have to work on. One is stopping the other team's defense. It seems like the bye week hasn't helped us at all. Although we lost this game, we're never going to stop cheering for the Packers. Go, Pack, go. Bleed green and gold till dead and cold. Thank you, Caleb.
Love it. We got another email from Jared Machini-Kerr, who says, offense. Seemed there was still a bit of Rodgers trying to force the ball to Adams in less than ideal situations. He needs to remember that there are more than just Tay. Williams and Jones played well again in an incredibly tough defense. O-line once again did no favors for Rodgers. All around, though, just really sloppy play. Couldn't get anything going, and drop passes in crucial moments were just breaking. Defense, I have a love-hate relationship with them. They're not the dominant force we saw in weeks 1 through 4, but the pass rush is still on point. Zadarius Smith balled out, but at the end of the day, our defense's kryptonite has been 1, slant routes, and 2, the run game. San Francisco exploited those like crazy, and I truly feared that recipe will be what the team focuses on moving forward to pick apart the defense, despite the Smiths' best efforts. Special teams, not much to say. Garbage play across the board. It's truly tough to watch. And officiating. Before I say this, I will make clear that the Packers are the main culprits in tonight's loss, especially the offense. But my goodness, the officiating has been replacement ref level all season. Their first half officiating tonight was a joke, and it seems to permeate the entire NFL. That said, it puts the onus for winning even more on teams so as to avoid the close, game-changing calls that the refs seem to so easily mess up. And I like his point that it's not just us. There have been insanely bad calls all across the league, and it seems like it's happening every week. What's going to be done about this?
Right, and when the announcers in the booth bring in their retired expert, they all point it out. So I don't know why the NFL just can't get a handle on this. And I know that we're one of the few leagues that doesn't have full-time employee officials, but I don't even know if making them full-time would help. I don't know what the answer is, but something's got to be done.
Something's got to be done for sure. Bring back the replacement refs at this point. Holy cow.
Yeah, at least we get the entertainment of one signaling a touchdown and the other one signaling interception all at the same time, and then we get to talk about it on the show.
That's ridiculous.
As long as it goes the other way. But
right.
We do want to have all of your emails and voicemails for next week's show because it's an earlier game and you get a little more time to get it in. The deadline to get those in, of course, is Sunday nights around 11 p.m. Central, sometime before you go to bed. The podcast isn't going to be complete next week without your thoughts, so make a note right now to call 920-3PACK-GO every Sunday night for the rest of the season, except for that week when we play on Monday night, but we'll get there. Thanks again for your support, and Go Pack Go. Let's check in with our weekly poll on Twitter and in our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group. What do our Packers have to improve most this week to get ready for next week's game? Thank you for your votes this week. We got over 200 votes this time. This was a hot button topic. The choices were improve the offensive line. That needs the most work. The defense, play calling, or the passing game.
I mean, to me, the easy answer here is the offensive line, because if you fix the offensive line, you're fixing the passing game at the same time. So that's a no-brainer to me. I think, could we do some things different on play calling? Yes, some more quick slants would be nice. But I think the offensive line is the key to both of those things. The play calling will be more successful if we fix that.
Amen. Yes, 40% of the voters did say the offensive line. Only 10% said the defense is what we needed to focus on most. 23% said play calling, and 27% said passing game.
We also had some comments on these polls. The first one came from Tava, who added the selection there, matchups, and Peter also added lock up Devontae, which was pretty funny.
Now, does that mean lock up Devontae off the field so he won't be out there?
That's how I took it. I mean, I guess you could say lock him up as like lock him in, but I took it as a negative.
Oh, okay. And since the question was, what do we need to focus on most? The one thing we have to focus on most, all of the above was not an option, although we had quite a few votes for all of the above.
Yes, fair enough. Adrian also gave us a fifth option: block out all the outside noise and take the Giants as a serious threat. And I could not agree more. I know that a lot of people are considering the Giants just to be a gimme game. We can't afford to look at any of these games as gimme games anymore. After what happened this week, they better be doing a lot of push-ups in the during the off week.
Right. And Cody added wide receivers specifically.
I mean, they're there. We have quality wide receivers there. We're just not throwing to them. Troy Heinrichs, the guy who used to sit in this chair on this very show, says, sit number 17. We played better on offense when he wasn't in because Rodgers had to actually run the offense as called.
Oh, my.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we would get away with sitting him, but I think that would, in a way, I could see us doing it, trying to teach him and Aaron Rodgers a lesson, but it might backfire even worse. But John also agrees with Troy, saying, just look at the offensive numbers since Adams has been back. Not good at all. I know he's a great player and we need him. However, getting him back into the mix has been an issue. Also, our offensive line is struggling at the worst time. Our coach needs to do better with in-game changes. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, those are excellent points, John. And I don't know what the secret is to getting the proper mix with Davante Adams and the other receivers. Just time, but we don't have time.
Nope.
There's no more time. The bye week's over. The end of the season is nigh, and our goal is in sight. We control our destiny. So, and starting off that destiny this Sunday, your 8-3 Green Bay Packers head to New York to play the 2-9 Giants Sunday at noon Central. This game is not flexed to Sunday night. The Packers lead the series all-time 33-26 and 2 ties. And looking way back, the first time we ever played the Giants was October 7th, 1928. And the Giants won that shootout 6-0.
Shootout.
So, back then, that was probably considered a shootout. I don't know. And like we mentioned earlier, the Packers cannot take anybody lightly because obviously the 2-9 Giants would love to be the team that beats us this particular week.
Absolutely. I mean, look what's been going on with the Jets lately. They came out the gate horribly, and they just dominated yesterday. So anything can happen, right? Any given Sunday?
Yes, and this is in New York, East Rutherford, New Jersey, to be exact. And it's not going to be nice weather like in Frisco. It's going to be the elements. 46 degrees Fahrenheit, 70% chance of rain. That's 8 degrees Celsius. And that 70% chance of rain is the same, whether Fahrenheit or Celsius, in case you were trying to do the math there, Scott. So it could be a messy game. Maybe not very muddy because I do believe they have field turf instead of grass, but it's still going to be sloppy.
And I can't wait. I love me some sloppy football, man. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the keys to an 8th Packers victory. I think number 1, refresh and reboot. The last time we lost in California, the team came back with fervor and resolve. The Pack needs to regroup and repeat that process with these last few games. While our schedule is much easier than most of our rivals, it's far from time to rest on our laurels. We should treat each game like a playoff game at this point. We still have a shot at that first-round bye, but it's not going to be easy. Number 2, we need to stop focusing on Adams. I feel like we're beating a dead horse saying this so many times this episode. And I'm not saying he should be benched, but at this point, any defense is going to know that's where Rodgers wants to throw the ball. Our biggest successes this week came from short passes that led to first downs. Those explosive plays are fun and make for great television, but the Packers fare much better when they march down the field deliberately. The Giants secondary is weak compared to some of the recent teams we faced, and we need to take advantage of that for sure. Lastly, practice in the elements. Clearly, we can't play in warm weather, at least not this year. So since we're on the East Coast this week, we should be back in our own element a bit more. With that said, practicing outdoors in the colder temperatures should be important. Keep in mind, though, that the Giants are also used to the cooler climate, so the Packers should be prepared for that as well.
I think that sounds like victory to me. If we just follow these messages here, your keys to victory will lead us to victory. And yeah, it is going to be a fun game to watch. It's not scheduled to be airing in my area and probably not in very many areas outside of Wisconsin and New York. But hey, if you find the game, watch it. It could be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. So what do we predict? Because nobody got last week's score right. Not even our special guest, Liz Loza, Yahoo Fantasy expert. We all picked the Packers, and that's how that goes. Are you picking the Packers this week, Scott?
I am picking the Packers, but I think it's going to be tighter than we think it's going to be. I went Packers 24, Giants 17.
That's a 7-point margin of victory. That's pretty good.
Well, I know, but I think that a lot of people, because they're 2-9, that we're just going to kind of just walk all over them. But with the weather being the way it is, with it raining and being sloppy, it's going to be a lot harder to hold on to the ball. I'm expecting a lot more turnovers. I'm expecting a little bit more run game, which is a good thing, but it's going to be slippery. The ball's going to be popping out. It's going to be harder to catch. I don't think it's going to be nearly as an explosive game as we're hoping for. I'd love to take it, but I think it's going to be a one-score game.
I do as well. Packers 20, Giants 13.
All right, man. It's going to be interesting. We're tied up at 4-4
and
with only 5 games left.
And we're both calling for a 7-point margin of victory. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting because for our listeners outside of the U.S., with this being our Thanksgiving holiday week, there's 3 games on Thursday this week. So a lot of teams get their playing out of the way on Thursday. And then, of course, we all do a bunch of shopping and eating and stuff, and then everybody else plays on Sunday and Monday. So if you're playing fantasy or even straight up pick 'em, you got 3 games to pick on Thursday, so get a cracking.
For sure. Also, if you'd like to join the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community and be a part of the conversation, head over to packerscommunity.com. There's more great conversations and posts over there, including our weekly post to discuss the game as it happens. It's a lot of fun to kind of keep up with the game with all of you guys.
And Miguel posted a comment mid-game. I didn't know we were playing the 49ers and the refs this week with the angry steam coming out of the nose emoji.
For sure. And there's a pretty good meme about AR-12's insurance of choice that you'll want to see. I couldn't resist. Even though it was a knock against us, it was too funny not to share.
There's even a pregame cheese battle meme that's in there and more. Check it out. Join the community, join the conversation, and start new conversations at packerscommunity.com.
Let's talk a little bit in the NFL, outside of the Packers. I don't know if you saw this video, but there were some fans tailgating yesterday. They had a piñata of Baker Mayfield, and they were attempting to blindfold the person, and then the person was supposed to beat the piñata with a Steelers helmet. I found that a little bit in poor taste. What did you think?
I didn't see that or even hear about it, but the way you describe it does sound like poor taste. In fact, Hank Davis would say, that's not football.
It's not. It just was. I mean, it's silly, it's funny, but
why are they doing it now? I could see something like this happening. Isn't this week the week that the Browns and Steelers play each other again, but this time in Pittsburgh? I mean, I could see it happening in the parking lot prior to that game, but not this week.
That would make sense, but some people want to be internet famous sooner than later. So.
Well, yeah, why waste time?
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but the refs absolutely ripped off the Cowboys. And I have no love for the Cowboys. Yesterday in that Patriots game in the rain, there were 2 calls that the refs said the Cowboys were tripping on the O-line.
Yeah.
There was no tripping happening at all.
I don't know what they're seeing.
And then to add insult to injury, in the post-game press conference, Tom Brady said something about the refs screwing up the time at the end in the game and giving the Cowboys 1 second left when they shouldn't have. Like, he's the one.
Because that's a big concern. Yeah, that's the thing that really changed the game there, man. It's too bad also we couldn't get some help from the Panthers and knock the Saints down a notch or 2. I thought they were going to do it, but unfortunately.
They were so close. I was like, I couldn't believe it. They came back. This could happen.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah, it was a sad day all around the NFL yesterday in many of the games. So right now in the NFC North, the Packers, because of the tiebreaker, are still in first place at 8-3. Those pesky Vikings right on our tails at 8-3. The Bears won, so 5-6, and the Lions are now 3-7-1. I'm pretty sure that mathematically puts them out of the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could win 5, and us and the Vikings could lose 5. So it's possible.
Okay,
it's possible.
Let's get real.
Well, you said mathematically.
Okay,
man.
So after Thanksgiving, if the Bears beat the Lions and make them 3-8-1,
I don't even know who to pick on that game, honestly.
I don't even know if I'm going to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch. It's not Thanksgiving football. You don't really watch. You just kind of have it on in the background while you're hanging out with family and eating turkey, right? It's just kind of ever present.
Yeah, our Thanksgiving meal and family time starts around the same time as the Cowboys game. But I tell you what, the late game, I am rooting for a miracle that the Falcons decide to show up on the late game and beat the Saints, I believe they play.
I'd love to see that happen, but I don't think it's gonna, man.
It could.
I don't think
it's
gonna. Hey,
They're hot and cold.
Any given Thursday.
The Falcons are hot and cold right now, and they were cold this week, so they need to be hot on Thursday.
Let's do it. Well, hey, Wayne, do you like video games?
Yes.
Well, if you love to play video games as much as I do, I'm going to encourage you and our listeners to please check out my other podcast, The Gaming Outsider, which can be heard at the same places you listen to this one. Shortly after this episode of the Packers Fan Podcast airs, you can hear me talking about with some friends over there about the new Pokemon game that just came out recently.
Now you got my attention.
So you're a Pokemon guy, huh?
Pokemon, Charizard, Squirtle.
See, and I've never played a Pokemon game before. Would you believe that? And I'm on a video game podcast. But I digress. Anyway, if you'd like to check that out, our website is also thegamingoutsider.com. We got lots of written reviews and also editorials and everything over there. Please check it out. Again, thegamingoutsider.com.
In fact, I just caught a 98 IV Houndoom today. Gonna buff that guy to the moon. Now, of course, when you say you can listen to that podcast, The Gaming Outsider, at the same place as you listen to the Packers Fan Podcast, if by some chance you listen to the Packers Fan Podcast right on our website, then thegamingoutsider.com, right?
Yes. Oh, I said it twice already. I didn't want to pimp myself too hard.
Third time's a charm, Scott.
Okay, all right.
A charm. And for me, Castle Rock on Hulu, this has been a really weird, dark, and very eye-opening season of Castle Rock. It's very enjoyable. And if you're watching that and getting creeped out every week, join in and listen to the Castle Rock Zone podcast at castlerockzone.com.
A huge thank you and go Pack go to Bryant for his continued support of the show at the $24 Willie Wood pledge level. Thank you and go Pack go to Jared Machini Kerr for his $12 support of the show. Also at the $12 a month level, our friends in the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics Facebook group. Go Pack go and thank you.
Also at the $4 a month Brett Favre Patreon support level, Lawrence Harvey and Jeff Summerfield, and the Curly Lambeau $1 supporters, Aaron Peterson from the Hollywood Outsider, Hank Davis from the TPE network of podcasts, where you can find the Mandalorian Fan Podcast. Also, Matt Haig and Joe Christensen. Check out how you too can financially support the podcast at a level to match your budget and even get some cool Packers Fan Podcast logo merchandise. Details at patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast. Thanks, and go Pack Go. The Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, not yet affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. We're just saying. But hey, there's still time to make it happen by emailing media@PackersFanPodcast.com.
Also, follow us on Twitter at PackersFanPod, or my personal Twitter handle is at GoCastScott, and Wayne's is at Wayne Henderson. And please join our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community by visiting PackersCommunity.com and join the conversation.
And get your feedback in by Sunday night at 11 p.m. Central. Go to PackersFanPodcast.com and click the Contact Us button for all the details. Thanks again for joining us on the show again this week, even when we have to talk about a loss. If you missed any of the details on how to get in touch, hit that back button a couple of times on your podcast player, and we'll say it again for you.
Be sure to subscribe in your podcast player of choice so you don't miss an episode. It's time for the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics group to get us ready to face the Giants.
This is Dawn down here in Texas, a.k.a. Granny Cheese.
Hi, I'm James.
Hi, I'm Kim.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Hi, I'm Lisa Montgomery, and we want to say,
Go Pack Go!